Good morning. I want to start with an appeal for tolerance. We all know that Brexit is a controversial subject. It excites strong passions. But as a party and as a country, we also need to keep a sense of proportion. Everybody had a vote. Most people have an opinion. But only a small minority think it's worth fighting over, except when they're on Twitter. It's important to remember that the person sitting next to you, on the bus into town, at your desk at work, round the breakfast table, and yes, here in this hall today, may have voted the other way to you in the referendum. That's the genius of our democracy. We express our differences at the ballot box, but afterwards we come together and respect the result. When it comes to wanting what's best for Britain, we're all on the same side. As someone who campaigned to leave, not only do I respect the opinions of those who wanted us to stay in the EU, I'd go further. I think they made some important arguments and highlighted some difficulties that some on my side were too quick to dismiss. Disentangling our laws, our institutions, our economy from Brussels after more than 40 years of EU membership was never going to be entirely straightforward or risk-free. To rise to the challenge, we'll need some unity of purpose, and I believe we're at our best when we work together to forge something bigger than the sum of our parts, as a government, as a party, and as a country. For my part, I'm lucky to have a brilliant ministerial team with Martin Callanan, Robin Walker, Suella Braverman, and Chris Eaton-Harris working tirelessly to deliver the very best Brexit we can. And the reason I accepted the Prime Minister's offer to join the Cabinet is because my approach to Brexit is pragmatic, not dogmatic. Do I think the deal we're pursuing is perfect? Of course not. Is it everything I wanted? No, it isn't. This is a negotiation. There have been compromises. We're not decoupling or as quickly or as completely as some would like. And we've been prepared to accept certain EU requirements in order to secure our own interests. I've been back and forth to Brussels negotiating the details of our withdrawal agreement and the framework for our future relationship. The vast majority of the withdrawal agreement has been settled, although we've still got some tricky issues outstanding, and we're making good progress on the future relationship. We've been reasonable. Some say too reasonable. But our proposals would deliver a historic agreement that provides a roadmap out of the EU and a final deal that will be good for the whole country. A deal that delivers on the referendum, because that's our democratic duty. A deal that manages the risks of Brexit, because that's our responsibility. And a deal that grasps the opportunities of Brexit, because we're at our best when we're optimistic about the future. And a deal that protects our precious union, because we are the Conservative and Unionist Party. To those of my fellow Eurosceptic colleagues who think it's not good enough, I'd just say this. If I'd have told you 3 years ago that we were going to end free movement, stop the vast annual budget contributions, leave the single market, get out of the customs union, pursue an independent trade policy, make Parliament supreme, protect the union, exit the common fisheries policy, and ditch the common agricultural policy, you would have bitten my arm off. If the EU match our ambition and our pragmatism, that's what our proposals will deliver. I said if the EU matches our ambition and our pragmatism. Unfortunately, that wasn't on display at Salzburg. Our Prime Minister has been constructive and respectful. In return, we heard jibes from senior leaders. And we saw a starkly one-sided approach to negotiation, where the EU's theological approach allows no room for serious compromise. And yet we're expected to cast aside the territorial integrity of our own country. If the EU want a deal, they need to get serious, and they need to do it now. At the same time, as in any negotiation, we will listen to the alternative ways of delivering on the strategic criteria we've set out, because a good deal is the best outcome for everyone. But our willingness to compromise is not without limit. We're leaving the EU in fact, not just in name. If we can't obtain a deal that secures that objective, if an attempt is made to lock us in via the back door of the EEA or the customs union, if the only offer from the EU threatens the integrity of our union, then we will be left with no choice but to leave with no deal. That's why the whole of the machinery of government is busy preparing for a no-deal scenario. Not because we want it, not because we think it's likely, but because it might happen. Some people say that no deal is unthinkable. Wrong. What is unthinkable is that this government or any other British government could be bullied by the threat of some kind of economic embargo into signing a one-sided deal against our country's interests. Now, when it comes to no deal, we've heard some pretty lurid predictions from the prophets of doom. They claim planes will be grounded, the ports will be blocked. Let's have some common sense here. Why on earth would any of those things happen unless someone decided to make them happen? Even if we can't secure a comprehensive deal with the EU, I have to say I find it hard to believe they would, for narrow political reasons, seek to punish Britain in such a crass and counterproductive way, threatening European as well as UK businesses and jobs. But if I'm wrong about that, it's hardly an attractive argument for those suggesting we should stay in the club. The reality? Yes, there are risks and potential short-term disruption, but we'll deal with them and any other problems that might arise in the no-deal scenario in a calm and sensible manner, as we've already started to set out with our 77 technical notices, from aviation to car insurance. But beyond all the complexities of Brexit, one thing must be sacrosanct: democracy itself. Two years ago, we had a referendum in which more people voted than at any time before or since. Like any national vote, there were claims and counterclaims and plenty of controversy. It was ever thus. Democracy is rough-edged, not clean-cut. But one thing was crystal clear, and we all know it in our hearts. It was even written on that government leaflet that was sent out to every household. Let me just remind you what it said. This is your decision. The government will implement what you decide. Well, we did decide. It was close, but it was clear. Britain voted to leave the EU. Respecting the result, that's the essence of our democracy. And I have to say, I'm heartened by the fact that the majority of those who voted to remain have accepted the referendum verdict. For them, the integrity of our democracy is far more important than winning or losing on any one individual issue. But I'll tell you what's not democracy. the efforts of a small but influential group of senior politicians and establishment figures to overturn the result of the referendum. They want to stop us leaving. You can just picture them sitting in an expensive advertising agency discussing how to claim that black is white. Our research shows that the public doesn't like the idea of a second referendum. That's all right. We'll rebrand it a people's vote. They might buy that. But there's a real sense that leave one fair and square. Most people just want to get on with it. Don't worry. We'll bankroll a campaign to scare the wits out of them. Hang on. All that Project Fear stuff didn't work too well first time around. That's because it wasn't scary enough. This time, we'll claim that no deal will mean patients won't get their medicines, mobile phone roaming charges will go through the roof, debris will fall from the sky. Honestly, it would be pathetic if it wasn't so dangerous. And under Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party has now opened the door to reversing Brexit. A clear breach of their manifesto promise, a deliberate tactic to weaken the negotiating position of the UK for their own narrow political gain. Just imagine for a moment if they succeeded. Trust in our democracy would all but vanish. Most people, whether they voted Leave or Remain, would see it for what it is. A shameless ruse by an establishment that thinks it has the right to keep asking the same question until it gets the answer it wants. And who would benefit? If there's mass disillusionment with the system, then it's the populists, the far left, the alt-right, who will reap the reward, as they have in other countries where the establishment has ignored people's concerns, where voters have been told that their hopes and their fears are not important because the establishment knows best. And because of that, in many of those countries, it's the extremists who are on the march. That's where this kind of disdain for democracy leads. You don't think it could happen here? Just take a look at the Labour Party. A few years ago, the moderates of New Labour were in charge. We had our differences with Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, big differences. But there was also a shared understanding about the basic freedoms and tolerance that shore up our democracy and the civilised conduct of politics. Give or take a couple of punches from John Prescott. So what happened? Left-wing extremists, long confined to the margins, took their chance and took control of the Labour Party. Today, those extremists are led by Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. They've captured the Labour Party lock, stock and barrel. And under the nose of Labour's leaders, they're using all the tools in the extremist armoury. Intimidation, fanaticism, scapegoating, especially against Jews. The cozying up to Holocaust deniers and terrorists, the casual equation of Jews with the Israeli government, the vicious abuse levelled at their own Jewish MPs. That a once great mainstream party should stoop so low is a stain on Britain. I say to Labour, you'd be surprised how many British people take this personally. They know things you choose to forget. 80 years ago, in 1938, Nazi Germany invaded Czechoslovakia. The lucky few fled. some of them to Britain. One Jewish family arrived in England with a little boy called Peter. He was 6 years old and he spoke no English. That little boy grew up knowing that his grandmother, his grandfather, most of his relatives, the loved ones left behind, had been systematically murdered for no other reason than that they were Jews. That little boy learnt English. He got into a grammar school. He grasped the opportunities and embraced the tolerance that our great country has to offer. He became a food manager at Marks & Spencer. He married a clothes buyer, Church of England girl from Bromley. But he never forgot what happened to his family. That little boy was my father. And I will honour his memory by fighting the scourge of anti-Semitism and racism until my last breath. Because none of us can rest until Corbyn, McDonnell and their extremist gang have been driven back to the margins, where they belong. And none of us should give succor to Labour's political opportunism on Brexit, which has just one aim: to put Jeremy Corbyn in Downing Street. That's why we must come together over Brexit and recognise that what divides us is nothing compared to our struggle with the Labour Party. An epic struggle we must win, not just to defend people's jobs and livelihoods, but to preserve the free and tolerant democracy that we cherish in this country. Conference, it's time for us to stand together to make a success of Brexit, so that the United Kingdom goes from strength to strength. I know we can do it. I know we will do it, because I believe in the British people. I'm an optimist, not the rose-tinted kind. I'm a stubborn optimist who believes we breathe life into hope through the tenacity of our efforts. And I'm optimistic history will judge Brexit not on the tortuous haggle we're having with Brussels, but as a springboard to a buccaneering global embrace of free trade, to boost our amazing SMEs with wider export opportunities, to create the jobs of the future, to cut tariffs and reduce the cost of living for low and middle income families, and to give the poorest countries in the world their chance to trade and stand on their own 2 feet, the surest route to real economic independence. I'm optimistic because I see that Britain is a country bursting with talent. Scientific talent, creative talent, entrepreneurial talent. We have a dynamic culture that takes the best of what we've got and mixes it with bold innovations in every field of endeavour. Our strength is that we keep producing and attracting amazing people who want to contribute to something bigger than themselves, to something bigger than the sum of its parts. That's why we're delivering Brexit. Yes, to control immigration and regain public trust in the system, but also to expand our global horizons so we attract the best and the brightest from around the world, to invent the next life-saving drug, to pioneer the next breathtaking technology, to help us write the next chapter in our history. Above all, I'm optimistic we will deliver Brexit faithful to the referendum, a springboard to democratic revival, to take back control over our own destiny, so that politicians like me never forget the humility that makes us accountable to all of you. We've had our arguments, but now is the time to put them behind us. Now is the time to come together, because this is a moment for the optimists, and ours is a country ready to shine. Thank you.
Comments. As a party, it is really important that we hear from our party members. This year, we, your senior volunteers elected by you, have lobbied hard to ensure that there are as many opportunities as possible for members to ask questions and to speak. I'm delighted that this year we have more contribution slots available to party members. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our first three contributions to the stage. We'll hear from Graham Evans, Katrina Sale, and Jeremy Rice MacDonald. Graham.
Thank you. Good morning, conference. I'm Graham Evans from Weaver Vale. While doom-mongers in Labour and the media try to paint a tragic picture of Brexit, we are more positive. We look at the positives of those most British parts of our economy and culture that will help us to navigate post-Brexit. Those robust industries that have grown in the face of economic uncertainties, that are not solely reliant upon exports, that are primarily domestic in their customer base. No sector ticks those boxes as comprehensively as hospitality, a sector that deserves a greater voice in informing policy as we exit the EU. Too often taken for granted, hospitality has a huge presence in every constituency. It provides services that we use every day and is where so many of us got our first taste for work. I certainly worked in a pub, and that's where I met Mrs. Evans. It is the UK's third largest private sector employer, providing more jobs than motor manufacturing and transport combined, and twice that of financial services. It is 130 billion annual turnover, is more than automotive, aeronautics and pharmaceuticals put together. This is the equivalent to the entire UK defence budget, and it accounts for nearly 3/4 of tourist visitor spend, nearly 25 billion in itself. Although it comprises nearly 90% SMEs, hospitality is very, very big business. It now has one unified voice in the new trade body, UK Hospitality, but it has many diverse policy interests. We must look at how we best nurture commercial growth in these bulwark sectors of our economy, those that will be crucial in helping us to navigate our way through post-Brexit waters. I've been leading UK Hospitality's calls for a Minister for Hospitality to bring together the many areas of policy concerns and challenges facing the sector, to help hospitality to help us all. Because Britain does hospitality like no other nation, with unrivaled talent, innovation and tradition. As we leave the EU and carve our new place for Britain in the world, hospitality has the economic might that can be crucial to our fortunes. To do so, hospitality needs the ear of government and a position in government that ensures we get the best from the sector. Conference. Great Britain's pubs, restaurants, hotels and high streets and tourism attractions are the envy of the world. Great Britain is, and always will be, a great place to live, work and visit because of our hospitality. Let's recognise that fact, celebrate our venues, and listen to this crucial and valuable great British sector. Conference, I hope to see you all down at the pub. Thank you.
Good morning, conference. Today, I want to talk to you about what the Conservative Party could gain from offering more support to entrepreneurs. I've been an entrepreneur for about 4 years now, and I made the choice to leave a stable salary and a pension scheme and everything that comes with it, because I believed that through creativity, innovation, and determination, I could change the world. And I am in great company. In the UK, we start over 2,500 new businesses every single day. Our entrepreneurs are solving global issues, attracting external investment, and creating jobs across the UK. So what can the Tory party achieve through supporting British entrepreneurs? Firstly, it sends a clear message of optimism and belief in the people. We are the party that says the individual is better placed to improve the world than big government, and empowers them to achieve this through greater control of their finances and their futures. Generation Z and the millennials particularly resonate with individuality and self-realization, and many of them, us, have started new businesses and embraced entrepreneurship as an alternative to a traditional career. However, even though these values are so closely aligned with ours, we are not yet winning the battle for young hearts and minds. How can this be? The second benefit of supporting entrepreneurship and putting it at the center of our domestic agenda is that it will align our values with theirs and restore a generation's faith in our party. And the third benefit, entrepreneurs and innovation will be vital in a post-Brexit world. Through the complexities of Brexit, they will continue to create new jobs, forge new global relationships, and create new ways to attract wealth into this country. So, conference, I have 3 specific actions I would like you to take away. Of the 2,500 new businesses started every single day, only 500 will make it to year 2. So I want to see the government continue to remove red tape and offer support to entrepreneurs so we can increase this number. In particular, I would like to see more incentives to support female entrepreneurs, who currently only make up 1/5 of our entrepreneurs and only receive 9% of startup funding. It's a huge opportunity. We are the party that delivered 2 women prime ministers. We know the power of women in leadership, and we must remove the barriers that hold them back. Secondly, I would like to see the party system embrace an entrepreneurial approach and modernise in a big way. It's hard to call ourselves the party of innovation when we still use paper forms and some of our teenage members still feel compelled to wear a suit and tie. I appreciate the party is taking great steps in this regard, but we must act quickly if we want to be seen as the party of the future. And finally, I would like to ask you, conference, to support entrepreneurs in your local community. If you are looking for an investment, invest through the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme. It is an amazing opportunity. If you have experience, mentor a founder. And if you have the choice to shop locally, shop from a startup, please do. And conference, let's talk up and be proud of what our party has done for entrepreneurs in the past and what it will continue to do in the future. Thank you.
Conference, thank you for the opportunity to speak about opportunities for all today. As you can see, we've had the hall specially decorated for this speech and no magnetic letters today. I'm a councillor for Trossachs and Teeth. It's a beautiful ward in Stirling. My background is invention and retail, an eclectic mix, but problem-solving sales and customer service skills are ironically exactly what a politician needs. This is the party of opportunity and helping people maximise their full potential. But the search for work is not always easy. I found this recently when trying to find a nighttime shelf stocking role that balanced with my council duties. But my challenge is nothing. If you have a disability, visible, invisible, mental or physical, if someone relies on you for their care needs, you have had traumatic experiences in the military, or you have been in care and aren't fully equipped for work, the challenges are massive. The excellent Disability Confidence Scheme gets employers to employ and actively support disabled colleagues, but we can go further. My solution is the Work Abilities Portal, a digital database that is free, national, updated by specialist charities and organisations that understand these challenges best. With useful information, case studies, tools and examples of best practice, a resource for employers and employees to reduce the unhelpful Google searches and increase understanding and support. This would not only benefit employees, but employers as well, through more engagement and productive employees. I would also like to have advice to not only get employees into work, but to support them while they're there and guide them to higher career pathways. I think developing everyone, leaving no one behind, or just simply ticking a box. Similar systems do exist, but they're expensive, underused, and the information is inconsistent. So where am I with this concept? Well, I've talked to many charities and politicians, and now have a charter that they can sign to document the support I've received. I'm now in the how on earth do I do this phase, and I'm exploring working with the government, setting up a social enterprise, but regardless, I'm determined this resource will be there for all, to make sure everyone is valued, enabled, and never left behind. WAP will be free, accurate, positive, and will supercharge the government's disability confidence scheme. Employers supporting their employees' challenges must be the norm, not the exception, so we can truly offer opportunity for all. Thank you.
Conference, we are delivering the transport and infrastructure to make Britain a truly fit for the future. Overall, it has improved significantly in the last decade. Further improving our transport network is at the heart of the plan for continuing to grow the economy and boost productivity. From my own experience in both local government and in industry, I can tell you how important this is. Making sure that we help businesses across the country deliver better, higher paying jobs. Because our roads, rail and air networks are at the heart of our economy. We have seen the biggest railway modernisation programme since the Victorian times, and the largest road building programme since the 1970s. And some of the most significant infrastructure projects in Europe. This is in no small part to the hard work of an excellent Conservative Secretary of State, who has served with distinction across a number of challenging government briefs before taking up his current role in 2016. I'm delighted to introduce to you the Secretary of State for Transport, Chris Grayling.
Good morning. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're a party and this is a government that's dealing with some pretty big decisions. But we're a party and a government that does take big decisions. And you know, we're a party and a government that is doing things that others have run away from for decades. And as Transport Secretary, I am really proud to be part of a government who, after 50 years of delay, finally got a parliamentary majority on both sides of the House in favour of expanding Heathrow Airport. It's a no-brainer, really. Our flagship airport's full. There are airlines queuing up to fly from it. There are cities all around the United Kingdom which need to be better connected to the outside world. And of course, we've got some great airport success stories. Manchester, Belfast, Leeds Bradford, Newcastle, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Cardiff, and of course just down the road here in Birmingham. But we really do need a strong hub airport to succeed. And the vote in Parliament, with a majority of nearly 300, has set us on the path to delivering that expanded Heathrow. But beyond Heathrow, it's not just about expanding Heathrow, we've also given our regional airports freedom to expand as well. And as I say, we've got some great regional airports, and today I can announce our recommitment to one of those airports, Newquay. Those of you who live down there know how important it is to the economy of the South West, and we in government provide support to the crucial air links to London. And I can say today, we are going to be renewing that support for another 4 years, and with the jets that our fantastic team of Cornish MPs have been calling for. It's the right thing for Cornwall and the South West. And while we're on the subject of teams, let me say a word of thanks to mine, sitting down in the front row. My ministers, Jo Johnson, Liz Sugg, Jessie Norman, and I think a particular pat on the back for the first female Muslim government minister in the Commons, Nuz Ghani. And we've got two great PPSs, James Heapy and Bim Afolami, a great Commons whip, Michelle Donnellan. We've also got a new guy in the Lords, a fresh new young whip, someone you might have heard of, Lord Young, or Sir George Young, as he was when he was Transport Secretary. A great addition to the team and a great team player. And I'd also like to say a big word of thanks to Stephen Metcalfe for the fantastic work he's doing as Government Envoy for the Year of Engineering. Thank you to all of you. Of course, it hasn't always been an easy year for aviation. When I stood in front of you just a year ago, I had come back from Manchester Airport, where I'd met the first flight bringing passengers back after the collapse of Monarch Airlines. In the following days, we brought back nearly 100,000 people. And when I say we, it was a huge team effort involving other UK airlines, the Civil Aviation Authority, and 10 government departments. Everyone working together to get people home, and I'm proud of that swift response. It was a tribute to what this country can do in times of change. You know, the loss of Monarch was a sad day, but our aviation sectors continue to thrive. The Monarch planes are now flying again under different colours. The slots at the airports were snapped up quickly, and our successful aviation industry moved on to meet new challenges. I'm proud to live in a country where our industries and our businesses instinctively know how to adapt and grow following changes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what will happen to this country after Brexit, regardless of the outcome of the negotiations. And just a word to those who say Brexit will mean the planes stop flying. They are doomsayers who do not know what they are talking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, whilst our aviation sectors had a strong year, the same cannot be said of our railways. I have already apologised for the disruption caused by the failures in the introduction of the new timetable in May. It was unacceptable, and I want to say again how sorry I am that so many passengers had such a difficult time. For us as Conservatives, it was particularly frustrating because the new timetable is actually part of a big investment programme in the railways to deliver more trains and more seats for passengers in both the north and the south. The chaos cannot and will not be allowed to happen again. But it's also clear that the system has greater challenges than just a failed timetable introduction. In the past 20 years, the railways have been going through an extraordinary period of growth. The number of passengers, the number of trains on the railways have doubled. The trains are packed, the network's creaking. Passengers experience too many things going wrong. And we need to look after them when that happens, which is why today I can announce we're going to take a further step forward on compensation and introduce one-click compensation for delays and disruption, making it easier for people to claim compensation when they deserve to receive it. But we've got to make sure the railways work better for customers. And as I say, it's frustrating for us because as Conservatives in government, we're spending more on rail than any government in modern times. New trains all over the country, upgraded tracks, new routes across the north and the south and the Midlands, and indeed, actually, after a decade under Labour, when things stood still, leaving us much ground to catch up. Do you know, we hear about the north from them. They let a Northern Rail franchise with absolutely no investment in it at all. That's Labour and the north. What do? We let a Northern Rail franchise, which is replacing and refurbishing every single train across the whole of the north of England. That's what Conservatives deliver in government. Labour fail, Conservatives deliver. But I think we all know, and I certainly know, the industry is not making the best of that investment. It is clear that the way our railways are run no longer works when the system is under pressure. Now, last year I said to you we'd started a process of evolution towards a more joined-up railway, with single teams running the track and the trains. But the conclusion I've reached in the last few weeks is that evolution is no longer enough. We need revolution, we need big change. And that is why 2 weeks ago, I announced an urgent review of the way our railways work and how we move forward with the necessary reforms, led by the former Chief Executive of British Airways, Keith Williams. We do need that wholesale change. I've asked Keith to set out the best way of delivering just that, and to do so quickly. We'll publish a white paper on delivering a rail revolution for Britain next year, and we will then begin work immediately to deliver a more passenger-focused and reliable railway. But I'm also going to disappoint our opponents, because it's not going to stop us from investing in our railways. We're not going to pause. We're not going to hold back on that investment programme. And in fact, here in Birmingham, just a couple of days ago, Andy Street and I were unveiling designs and plans for the expansion of this city's rail network by reopening one of the lines that was lost by British Rail more than 50 years ago. And it's worth saying that partnership is what can be achieved when there is a strong relationship between a fantastic Metro Mayor and a Secretary of State. Andy's actually doing a fantastic job for Birmingham. It's great to work alongside him. And actually, yesterday we did another visit together, down to see the first piece of construction on the site of the new HS2 station. The work on HS2 has already begun. It's already helping regenerate part of Birmingham. It's already employing 6,000 people. And when it's finished, HS2 will ease pressure on our overcrowded rail network. It will help us tackle that rail challenge. But you know, it wasn't actually rail that put Birmingham on the transport map. This is one of the great centres of our automotive industry. And whilst there's an awful lot of talk about trains and planes, actually it's what happens on our roads that will make the biggest difference to all of you. I know that most people depend on a good road system in their daily lives. And we have to help improve that system. Demand for road transport's grown enormously. There are more and more cars and lorries on our roads. More and more people who depend on our roads for their livelihoods. So we've launched the biggest roads upgrade programme for decades, investing every single penny you pay in car tax back into improving the roads you drive on. We're expanding capacity on the motorways with a smart motorways programme that's adding space for motorists from Portsmouth to Oldham. It means an extra lane and less congestion for you. We've just opened the last leg of Motorway Road from London to Newcastle. I haven't alone knows why it didn't happen years ago, and it certainly didn't happen while Labour were in power. You know, again, they accuse us of doing nothing for the North. They were the ones who neglected the North for so long, leaving us to play catch-up today. And the same is true, not just in the North, but across the whole country, where Labour did nothing. We're doing plenty. We're moving ahead with dualling the A303, providing crucial improvements for the southwest. We're upgrading the A14 through East Anglia. We're starting work on a new crossing to ease the pressures on the M25 at Dartford. But you know and I know, it's not just motorways and the big A roads that need investment. So we're also now moving ahead with plans to upgrade what we call the major road network, the next tier down of roads, which plays such an important part in good regional connections. And today I'm able to announce the details of the first 5 schemes in that programme, which will now start in development. A new section of the York Outer Ring Road, modernising Gallows Corner in East London, the infamous farmyard bottleneck, literally the main road through a farmyard, Grisbeck Bypass near Barrow-in-Furness, the A614 near Ollerton in Nottinghamshire, and we're going to be building new slip roads in Thurrock. And we're now going to set about the work with those local authorities to move ahead with those schemes and deliver further details of what we're going to be doing in the spring. But I think you also know there's another problem on our roads. I'm acutely aware that we have problems with the condition of our roads in many areas. Potholes are a blight on every motorist, and too many are caused by poor road repairs. Now, in government, we're already spending record amounts helping fix potholes, but I intend to move ahead with further measures this autumn to tackle this blight of poor repairs and potholes and continuous damage on our roads. We have got to deal with this issue, and we've got to deal with it properly, and we've got to improve things for motorists. But it's also not just about building and maintaining roads. There's a revolution coming in the way we use those roads. Low-emission cars, driverless vehicles, smart data that improves the way we plan journeys. 3 weeks ago, in this very conference centre, we held the first international zero-emission vehicle summit, attracting visitors from around the world, as well as great UK innovators. You know, making the transition to a new generation of ultra-low and zero-emission vehicles is one of the most important challenges of our time. We have to face up to the challenge of climate change, particularly when road transport is one of the biggest contributors to it. We've got to improve air quality in our cities. The health of our citizens depends upon it. That's why we're committed to ending the sale of new diesel and petrol cars by 2040, and to make rapid progress towards greener vehicles now. But there's one thing I also want to be clear about, particularly here in the West Midlands. Newer diesel cars today are cleaner than ever before, and of course, there will be a role for diesel for many years to come as new technology evolves. But actually, if you're a motorist driving just in and around our major towns and cities, you're much better off today looking to an electric or ultra-low emission vehicle to become the obvious choice for you. And thanks to what we're doing, thanks to the work of this Conservative government, motorists are already buying in to that need for change. Do you know in August, 1 in 12 of the new cars sold in this country were ultra-low emission vehicles, and that number is going to rise and rise. And we will continue to do everything we can to support that transition, supporting research into new battery technology at the Faraday Centre, incentivising buyers of low-emission vehicles, cars, buses and vans. All of this is one of the great challenges for our generation, and is one we will make sure that we meet. But you know, it's more than an electric revolution. We're now rapidly approaching the era of the driverless car. Well, I expect all of you know from your own cars. Every new model launched today seems to do more and more for itself. I expect the first truly driverless car to be on our roads within 3 or 4 years. And it is going to transform people's lives, particularly the elderly and the disabled, for whom there'll suddenly be far more opportunities to be mobile. It'll change the way we use cars in our big towns and cities. And the technology will also play a part in helping deliver much better public transport. But I don't need to say this to a room of Conservatives. It's not just about our cities. I'm only too well aware of the need to improve public transport in our rural areas and smaller towns. And we're already seeing some exciting new developments, signs of change that can actually help us meet that very real challenge. New bus services, for example, starting that respond just to a click on your mobile phone. They don't just follow a set route, they are flexible to meet the needs of local communities. And of course, new types of vehicle will help. Those autonomous vehicles, large and small, like the driverless pods being developed by the great firm Westfield here in the West Midlands. This is a revolution that is truly going to transform lives and transform the way that we travel around our towns, our cities, and in our countrysides. And ladies and gentlemen, we are a government that will drive real change for the travelling public, and also not forgetting those who ship freight around the country. We're going to deliver more capacity, greener journeys, smart use of technology. We're going to support our flourishing shipping industry and ports. We're going to spend money supporting new cycle routes in our cities. We're doing all of that already. And above all, what we're doing is we are investing in transport in a way that Labour never did. It's always the same, they always promise the earth. They're doing it again now, they did it last week in Liverpool. But in government, they deliver very little. Conservatives are not like that. The transport investments we're making will be essential to our country in the post-Brexit world. If we are to be a dynamic entrepreneurial country, if we're to be a truly global Britain, we need the roads, the railways, the ports, and the airports to support that. There's much to do. There are problems to solve, but we will deliver for Britain. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me say a word about Brexit. You know that I was the first cabinet minister to declare publicly for Brexit. I believe passionately that Britain is doing the right thing. I've represented Britain on different European councils for the past 8 years. I've seen the workings of the EU and what it needs to do to secure its future. But I believe that the EU's needs are not Britain's needs. I believe we're better outside, as good friends and neighbours, not part of the march towards a federal Europe. So no one should doubt my Brexit credentials. We are doing the right thing. But so is our Prime Minister. I want us to make sure we get out. I want us to be in charge of our own destiny. But I also want what I think is right for the country, which is a partnership in trade, security, and research. It makes sense for all of us. I hope and believe we can agree that partnership. And yes, we are making preparations in case we cannot. We're planning for all eventualities right across our transport system, and we have been for months and months and months. I know that under Theresa May, this country will not accept a deal that's bad for Britain, or one that is bad for the Union, that is the United Kingdom. We know that. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is why I am backing, that is why we should all back our Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, it's almost 100 years since the first Labour government. You know, we know, they have always taken Britain backwards. They've always cost people jobs. They sit on the sidelines promising everyone everything, and then they leave most people worse off in the end. And they have never been so extreme and dangerous as they are today. We cannot allow the election of the most extreme Labour government this country has ever seen. So we have to stick together. We have to unite to deliver Brexit. And then we have to take the battle to a group of Marxists who would wreck this country for decades. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a historic task, but it is one where we absolutely must succeed. Thank you.
Conference, we are now going to hear from our second round of contributors. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage Tim Law, Siobhan Bailey, and Johnny Luck.
Good morning, Conference. I'd like to talk about an area where the UK government has been and remains in a leading role influencing global policy by actions as well as words, an area directly related to the UK and broader global economy, and for the benefit of communities and small and large businesses here and overseas. In June 2013, during the UK's presidency of the G7, we spoke of the golden thread of trade, tax and transparency, and specifically referenced beneficial ownership, meaning transparency about who really owns companies and who benefits from them. Beneficial ownership transparency is firmly on the international agenda and is likely to become the norm within a few years. Many see this as a key tool in the battle against money laundering, corruption, and the financing of criminal activities, including terrorism. The UK has long been a supporter of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, or EITI, and the UK joined in 2014. Beneficial ownership transparency now forms part of the EITI standard, and all 51 EITI countries are working on implementing beneficial ownership disclosure for extractives companies by the 1st of January 2020. Some countries are now introducing the concept of beneficial ownership into their domestic legislation and undertaking efforts to allow that disclosure of information, something the UK has had in place for 2 years. This government has continued to demonstrate leadership through measures to oblige UK-dependent territories to introduce beneficial ownership registers and has spearheaded moves to uncover the beneficial ownership by overseas companies of UK real estate. But it's important to recognise that beneficial ownership transparency isn't just about tackling crime and illicit financial flows. It's about creating an open environment of good governance that attracts and enables investment. Transparency in beneficial ownership allows businesses to know who they are really doing business with. So what next? This UK government continues to promote and support broader adoption of beneficial ownership disclosure and assess the level of technical assistance required to help countries establish registers. A number of countries have now made initial moves towards transparency in beneficial ownership, but the lack of a consistently applied global standard and, in some cases, capacity constraints means that progress is slow. This is a prime example of where the UK has and will continue to have an influential role on the global stage, and I applaud the efforts of this government, HM Treasury, and the Department for International Development in driving forward this agenda. Thank you.
Conference. We must be confident in our conservative principles and values. It is our approach to the economy based on those principles and values that has allowed us to reduce the deficit by 3/4, cut employment to the lowest levels since the 70s, increase exports of British goods, and see the number of businesses rise by 1.2 million. But we must not be deaf to the real issues that many people face. For some families, a successful economy may feel like something happening to others, something they hear about on the telly. I have worked with enough families during my time as a family lawyer to know that financial pressures at home damage relationships. They reduce the ability to look up, hope, and dream. So in Stroud, I kicked off my candidacy talking to people about their finances and cost of living, not the macro stuff. I want people in my constituency and the country to know that the Conservatives are always listening and we want families to thrive. We believe that their money is better off in their pocket to spend as they wish. And we have them in mind when we are creating millions of full-time jobs, cutting income tax for 31 million people, freezing fuel duty so journeys are cheaper, and cutting stamp duty for first-time buyers. There's many more successes, but there's also much more to do. And to Labour. I say that your failed dogmatic socialism did not hold the answers in the past, and it certainly does not hold the answers for the future. Seeking to help the many is not good enough. We need an economy that works for everyone. Your reckless approach to the UK economy will not help the people who rely on a healthy economy in times of need. Your politics of envy, division and interference will do nothing for workers, our businesses or the country. But most of all, I say to Labour, success is not a dirty word. The Conservatives are the party for aspiration. The I nearly had an exotic expression. The Conservatives are the party of opportunity. The Conservatives are the party for low taxes. And the Conservatives are the party for jobs. We must be confident in our principles and values, as only the Conservatives can deliver an economy that works for everyone. Thank you.
Hi there. The Conservative Party is for the young entrepreneur. We love making things happen. We love solving problems, and we love enterprise. I was the CEO of the National Association of College and University Entrepreneurs, or NACU. This is a network of enterprise societies across 260 educational institutions in the UK, representing thousands of mainstream, highly passionate young people that love business and creating value. You see, the left, through the National Union of Students, puts pressure for young people to be exposed to one view, while they don't have it their own way. NACU has shown that it's possible to build a national coalition of mainstream young people that care about free market principles, as well as develop the practical skills and grit you need in life. Through these enterprise societies, we've helped improve test scores by giving context to why people should learn maths and English through selling products in market stalls. We've also helped founders with funding, networks, and mentoring to launch companies that have grown enormously since, such as Inspire Me Korea, a UK-based global subscription box company, or Bon Petit, the maid.com for fashion. They're creating UK jobs, innovation, and investment. That's the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that should give us hope and give them a home with us. There's an army of like-minded, optimistic problem solvers out there. And by continuing to foster these groups, they will become our natural supporters, because only we truly appreciate their talent and their contribution to our great country. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. I'd now like to call to the stage Diana Black, followed by Jake Calperthwaite and Shaki Batty.
Dear friends and colleagues, I would like to address this conference by drawing attention to the gender pay gap. Closing the pay gap would bring important economic benefits. McKinsey estimates that the UK economy would gain an extra 150 billion by 2025 by closing the gender pay gap. Government Equalities Office estimates that equalising participation rates would add 10% to the size of the UK economy by 2030. There are many causes of the gender pay gap. They include unequally shared caring responsibilities, a divided labour market, and unconscious bias. There are more men at the top than women. The Conservative government has taken positive steps to tackle this problem. Recent programs encouraging girls to take STEM subjects are effective, but it will take longer time to see their full impact. The important area which still needs addressing is childcare. As a mother of 4 children, I know from my own experience how expensive childcare is. Government's policy, which provides free childcare to 3- and 4-year-olds, is a step in the right direction. But we need to take it further by extending childcare provision and funding places for all preschool children, not just 3- and 4-year-olds. Ideally, we need it to cover 38 hours a week. The government has already taken a step that requires bigger employers to publish their gender pay gap figures. It was achieved by introducing the Pay Gap Information Regulations 2017, which came into force on the 6th of April 2017. But now we need to take a step further. We need to prescribe the employers sets of actions aimed to close the gap further. In addition, a cultural shift is required to encourage men to choose flexible working where possible and to choose the option of the shared parental leave. I hope that drawing your attention to this topic can help us to create future policies to tackle the pay gap issue so that together we can create an economy that works for everyone. I thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak about this issue.
In a civilized society, the economy has to work for everyone, otherwise it will work for no one. Providing people with the opportunities that they seek and enabling them to fulfill their aspirations are the defining features of an economy that works in the national interest. As Conservatives, we understand that when it goes right, everyone benefits. And when it goes wrong, no one benefits. Statistics alone will never tell you the full story, because economics is much more about people than it's about numerical figures. There are 3 million more people in work since 2010, bringing the total UK workforce to 32.6 million people. But what does that mean? There are 3 million more people returning home with a pay package due at the end of the month. It's 3 million more people who have the satisfaction and fulfillment of having done a day's work instead of spending a day looking for work. And 9 out of 10 children now live in a home where one or both parents are working, illustrating a good example of how you should live your life. Supporting hard-working people has always been the primary mission for this government, and that's why over 25 million working people have received a typical tax reduction of £800 annually. That's why we have enacted a national living wage of £7.50 an hour, and those people working tirelessly full-time on minimum pay have seen their tax bill halved. These reforms have delivered real positive change to people's lives. But for an economy that works in the national interest, it's also about tackling the divide between generations. That's why we have to draw attention to the fact that since 2010, youth unemployment has fallen by 48%. Young people, like myself, now have greater reassurance that when completing a university degree or an apprenticeship or a college course, they are going to have a realistic prospect of finding suitable employment. Our pension reforms have seen 50% more people enrolled in the workplace pension scheme since 2012, saving to guarantee their dignity and security of well-being in later life. We have also empowered the regulator to monitor more effectively against the mismanagement of pension funds, which risks leaving people in immense difficulty when they retire. Our Help to Buy initiative has assisted 420,000 people in fulfilling their ambition of home ownership, and it will continue to help many more. And due to the creation of a more favourable business environment through measures such as business rates relief and repealing the bureaucratic regulations that hinder firms, we've supported the start-up of 55,000 new businesses since 2010, making Great Britain a country that rewards entrepreneurial spirit. These achievements have contributed towards an economy that works for everyone. There is still progress to be made, but we are going in the right direction, and the right destination is certainly in sight for Great Britain. Thank you.
Conference. The greatest gifts my father ever gave me was to teach me how to stand on my own 2 feet, how to run a business, and how to work hard for my dreams. As a result of those, on Friday, I, Saqib Bhatti, the son of a Pakistani immigrant, was privileged to become the youngest ever president of the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce, and the first... Thank you. And the first of Pakistani Muslim heritage in their 205-year history. As we work hard, thank you. As we work hard for our dreams here in the West Midlands, last year alone we created over 75,000 jobs. We are, of course, the only region in the country that has a trade surplus with China. And I'm told, as more and more people choose our beautiful region to come and work, live and play, we are the greatest importers of Londoners anywhere else in the country. So welcome to my beautiful city. However, Conference, we cannot be complacent. There is no doubt in my mind that there is a battle of ideas raging in this country right now. When opposition politicians can stand in their own conferences and speak of general strikes, eye-watering levels of borrowing and stifling levels of taxation without any challenge, I'm in no doubt that we must win this battle. My generation has not seen the winter of discontent, and nor must they. As president of the Greater Birmingham Chamber of Commerce, I believe that business is a force for good. It helps create jobs, it helps give purpose, it helps society innovate and drives forward growth. And when things go wrong, we must be quick to act, but we must also ensure that we allow those around us that want the opportunity to succeed to have exactly that. And business is not some opaque term which politicians can attack in some form of lazy rhetoric. It's the individuals that get up every day and every night, grinding away, making something or doing something. It's the sole traders, the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the jobs creators, and the wealth creators. Free enterprise is a part of our most fundamental liberties, and it says regardless of your background, your gender, your race, or your religion, if you want to make something of yourself, you can. Free enterprise, ladies and gentlemen, will be the greatest gift that we can give to our future generations. As President of the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce, I implore you to be confident in the messages of low taxation, free enterprise, and low regulation. I ask you to stand up for the hard-working business people in this city, this region, and this country. And let us create a legacy so when future generations start to face the challenges of their time, they look at us and say, let's do what they did. Thank you.
Conference, we are now going to try to do something a bit different. Greg Clark, the Secretary of State for Business, Energy, Industry Strategy, is currently at the Manufacturing Technology Centre in Coventry. We are now going to join him via satellite link.
Thank you, James. In my job, I spend a lot of time visiting businesses up and down the country. And so I wanted Conference to see what I see and meet some of the people that I meet. And so we're here live at the Manufacturing Technology Centre, just outside Coventry, to talk about our industrial strategy and how it's helping us seize some of the amazing opportunities that are opening up before us today. So I'm with Neil, who helps run the MTC.
Welcome back, Greg.
It's good to be back. Now tell us, Neil, about the MTC and what it does for manufacturing in Britain today.
Well, we're an independent research and technology organisation. We're a partnership between government, industry and academia, and we take those great ideas that come out of our academic base and we scale them up to the point where industry can actually use them.
So it's about the D side of R&D. We've got a brilliant reputation for discovery, but sometimes we let slip through our fingers in the past the deployment of this technology. So you help with that here.
Yeah, we develop the technology to the point where a business can actually use it and get it deployed on the factory floor and improve their productivity.
And you say you work with businesses. How many businesses would you work with?
Last year we worked with 500 different organisations, and 100 of those became industrial members who have a real long-term relationship with us where we help them develop their technology strategy.
We've got behind us, I don't know whether the conference can see, two pretty big robots.
Yeah.
What's their role in advanced manufacturing?
Well, robots and digitisation are a huge part of the future factory. So can I introduce you to Andy, who's
Hi, Andy.
one
Good to see you.
of the thought leaders in Europe on what the future factory looks like.
So the factory of the future, is this, we see robots there, is it going to be all robots and no people? What's the interaction going to be?
No, not at all. So we believe at the MTC that there'll always be a place for human skill, dexterity and intuition in manufacturing processes. So our job here is to develop systems where the humans and the robots can work together in a collaborative, safe working environment.
And we'll talk a bit later about how some of those skills are being developed as well. But just talking about robotics and this particular type of technology, what industries is it being deployed in most successfully?
So automotive obviously has been the forefront of automation for many, many years.
Especially here in the West Midlands.
But aerospace, construction, food and drink, and even outer space itself.
So outer space, I mean, this is an amazing story for the UK. We know that globally the satellite industry is booming. When you think of GPS or monitoring crops from space, the applications extend every single day. And we in the UK are the world's leader in the next generation of small satellites. Over half are manufactured here in the UK. And I think you make a contribution to the development of that technology.
Yes, so we're working closely at the moment with some local universities, developing a manufacturing hub specifically for that sector, and trying to transfer some of the innovative technologies like additive manufacturing into that industry.
And so it's a very successful industry. It's going to get better because, again, as part of our industrial strategy, we've launched the next satellite launch pad, the first one in the whole of Europe. At the moment, when we make these satellites, we've got to ship them out either to South America or to Asia to launch them. We will have the first launch pad in Europe, in the north of Scotland, which will make us even more attractive for this expanding industry. But Andy, you mentioned that skills are important. We talked about R&D and the deployment of technology. Making sure that skills in the workforce keep up with that is important. But I want to talk about some of the other features of the industrial strategy, in particular small businesses. And I think we're going to meet one or two of your colleagues to talk about that.
If I can take you over here. So we work with the global multinationals, but we also work with small supply chain companies. And this is Dean, who runs our very successful small business support program, and Lucy, who runs our design team.
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you. Now, so we've got some very good, very big manufacturers here, but it's crucial. We've always been in the UK a place that incumbents can't take their position for granted. We have insurgents. We have businesses that are challenging them. So how can you help some of those household names of the future?
Well, here at the MTC, we're an open collaboration centre. Last year we had over 35 visitors. A lot of those were SMEs, but we're really proud of having the members, the big corporate members, because they set the challenges for strategy and for the technical problems for the future. So, but around those companies, it really is how the SME and the supply chain delivers into those for the future, and they are the ones that need to adopt these technologies for the future to be competitive on a global scale. And we do that here because we have a dedicated team of manufacturing engineers who firstly go out to the SMEs, they assess the SME, talk to them about what the technologies are coming into the market for the future, and then we bring them here to actually see, test, feel, and trial out these new technologies, then hold their hand to implement them back into their own production processes.
So they're SMEs, but also I think it's startups. It's people that have an idea, but perhaps not a company yet to develop it, and that is something that you specialise in as well.
Absolutely. Well, a couple of months ago, the Chancellor opened here our new Product Incubation Centre, and in that centre we bring new startups in for the first couple of years of their life to be able to help them design their new products and manufacture their new products. And for that, we need our excellent engineers here, and Lucy heads up part of our design team who helps us bring those products to market.
So Lucy, when it comes to startups or small businesses, sometimes one of the difficulties they encounter is that they don't have the machinery that some of the big players can count on, and also sometimes the know-how, and design is an important part of that, and I think you help with that.
Yeah, definitely, because these small organizations, these startups, they have all the creative ideas, but is it manufacturable? Can it be made? That's where we come in. We use our skills, our design for manufacture skills, our people, together to work with them to create their first prototype and their seed product, and we test it on the market. That way, they're able to compete on a more global scale.
Because sometimes it's the case, isn't it, that they've got a great idea,
yes,
but actually they may not be able to sell it at the market because they haven't taken advantage of the low-cost production techniques, and so you can take an idea and help them make it sell.
Exactly that. So we use our people, our facilities, we test it on a low-cost basis. It's an agile environment. I mean, look at the facilities we've got here. And then once we help them develop that seed product, we test it on the market to see if it is sustainable. And if it is, we let them go. That way they're able to compete locally, regionally, on a global scale.
Fantastic, it's brilliant. Now, we've talked a lot about skills, we've talked about research and development, we've talked about supporting small businesses and startups. People, crucial pillar of our industrial strategy. Neil, I know you've got a marvellous apprenticeship programme here. Well, can we talk about some of the stars of that programme?
We realised that we wouldn't get the technology into the supply chain companies if we didn't create the people with the knowledge, and that's why we have Melissa and Rishi here.
Hi, Melissa. Hi, Rishi. Thanks for joining us this morning. Now, Melissa, you're in the second year, I think, of your apprenticeship.
Yes, I've just started.
Just started that. So tell us how you chose to do an apprenticeship in engineering. What was in your mind when you chose that?
So when I finished my GCSEs, I had to find out what I wanted to do afterwards. So I thought, what do I enjoy doing? I enjoy the practical work, the hands-on stuff. So when I was doing my research, I found out that engineering was what could help me out with that. So as I came here to MTC for an open evening, I saw what they did. I enjoyed the technology. I liked it. So I ended up coming here.
Now, it's still sadly the case that there are more young men than young women that go into engineering. So what did your friends say when you said that you were going to be an engineer?
Most of my friends were quite shocked, but it wasn't my friends that were mostly shocked. It was my mum that I had I had to convince her, because she still has that old-fashioned traditional thought that engineering is all mechanical, like you're underneath cars, fixing cars, surrounded by men, that it's a dirty industry. So I had to convince her, but I finally managed to convince her now, because the facilities here are so clean and great, and the technology is amazing, and I think that's something we need to get across to other young women out there, so that they can know that you can actually do a lot of other things here. So
there's not much dirt, and there are men, but they're quite nice, and there are lots of women too.
Exactly, yeah.
Now Rishi, you've just finished your apprenticeship, and congratulations on that. So what next for you?
So I'm currently undertaking a degree with Warwick University, part-time.
Part-time while you're working, so you're earning while you're learning, I assume?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the next step for me is to become a technical specialist within the theme I work in, which is CNC machining, which is essentially computer numerically controlled machines, which is a form of subtractive manufacture.
So it's directing the machine to cut away materials.
Absolutely, yeah.
Via a computer.
Yeah.
And that's one major technology. How does that take its position against additive manufacturing, laser printing, and the creation of new products through printed parts?
So, Greg, we've realised here that we need the sort of skills that Rishi has to then convert into the engineers of the future for additive manufacturing. So additive will take a very strong position in the future manufacturing landscape, but we know that we need the CNC machining skills to then go into that additive manufacturing supply chain.
So you do both?
We do both, and we're developing those training courses now to convert people from one to the other.
Absolutely. Well, great to meet you both, and good luck for the next stages of your careers. It's great to meet you. Now, we've talked about research and development, we've talked about helping small businesses, we've met some fantastic young people who are being trained in the skills of the future. Another important pillar of our industrial strategy is the importance of place. And of course, in the West Midlands, the place where the first industrial revolution was forged, they know all about that. And I've had the privilege of working very closely with our Mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, and he's about to launch the West Midlands Industrial Strategy, which is part of our overall industrial strategy, and he's here with me today to say a bit about what it contains.
Good morning, Greg. Great to be here.
So tell us, what are the key features of the West Midlands Industrial Strategy?
So the great thing about the industrial strategy is it allows every area of the country to really concentrate on what we are each good at. So we can compete not with one another, but internationally. So for the West Midlands, of course, we lead with our advanced manufacturing sector. We're famous, of course, for car manufacturers, but also for aerospace sector. But it's not just about manufacturing in the West Midlands. So we've got great businesses as well in the professional services sector, creative businesses, and some parts of life sciences. So we're getting behind all of those.
One of the things that we've, I think, both recognise is having a plan, having a long-term plan, while it's there for the long term, can have short-term benefits, and we had some good news on that just a couple of weeks ago.
We did, and it's an interesting case where the government can begin something off in a sort of catalytic way, then private business responds to that. So nearly 12 months ago now, Coventry was successful in the competition to be the centre of the UK Battery Institute. And what that's going to be is really about electric vehicle production. So the government put its cash down, but just a couple of weeks ago, as you say, we heard that a combination of Unipart and Williams, great private sector companies, said they'd be investing in their own manufacturing as well. So it begins that cluster, that idea of a new industry being based here.
Well, it was a great announcement. We've got more to come on that, and of course, not just in automotive. On the back of the life sciences part of the industrial strategy, we had a major commitment from the global life sciences company, MSD, to invest for the future on the basis of that strategy. It's great to have you here today, Andy.
Thank you.
Outside Coventry. It's been fantastic to see everything come to life here on the shop floor. We'll have lots of discussions about Brexit this week. But for me, one of the most exciting features of the times ahead of us are the colossal opportunities that we have during an industrial revolution that in many ways is the equal of the first industrial revolution that took place here in the West Midlands and across the UK. If we think about some of the changes that are taking place in almost every industry in the world, artificial intelligence and the analysis of data, the future of mobilities, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, the astonishing breakthroughs in medical science, and the change in almost every country in the world, from polluting sources of power and its use to clean energy. And in each of these areas, in each of these four grand challenges that the world is facing, the UK has a leading position, and it's one that we must capitalise on during the years ahead. The industrial strategy is precisely forged to enable us to do that. It's been great to be here to see that and to talk about its application in practice today. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to hand back, James, to you in the hall, but thank you to all colleagues in the hall for seeing a bit of what's going on here just outside Coventry, in Anstey, just outside Coventry, in the West Midlands this morning.